Hello everyone, and thanks for hanging out with us for the Behind the Numbers Weekly Listen, an e-marketer podcast made possible by VTEX. This is the Friday show that reviews the most hold-the-phone digital news stories of the week. I'm your host, Marcus Johnson. In today's show, Apple is preparing a bunch more privacy updates.
What we are seeing here is that, this is further indication that Apple thinks that privacy is a competitive advantage and consumers are willing to pay more for those features, or at least some consumers are.
Spotify launches its Clubhouse competitor.
I actually think if there's one Clubhouse clone that's going to be really successful, it would be coming out of Spotify, just because there's already this sort of live podcast culture.
New social network, IRL, takes on Facebook groups.
I think with any sort of fledgling social app that's trying to do all these different things, you hear all these, even Facebook, trying to create its own sort of super app or WeChat replica. I think all of those aspirations can be sometimes a bit hollow.
A new data privacy agency? Maybe. How much are Americans getting out? And that time something red fell from the sky. Join me for this episode. We have with us three people. Let's introduce those very people. We have with us one of our senior analysts covering consumer attitudes towards advertising. It's Audrey Schomer.
Hi, Marcus. Nice to be here.
Hello there. We're also joined by Sarah M. Watson, who is one of our senior analysts on the connectivity and tech team.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Sarah. And finally, we have Blake Drosch with us. He is one of our analysts on the retail and e-commerce team.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, buddy. So, today's episode, we have 4 portions as per usual. We start with a story of the week, more Apple privacy updates. We'll go through, try and figure out what the hell's going on there. We then move to the game of the week, where our contestants, Audrey, Blake, and Sarah, will go head to head to give us the best takeaway they possibly can from each of the 4 stories we have for you in an attempt to win the game of the week and the championship belt. We then move to questions answered, part of the show where we answer the questions that you've emailed into us, and finally dinner party data, where we talk random trivia. You know how it goes. Okay. Story of the week. More Apple privacy updates is where we start. So it's been 2 months since the introduction of Apple's App Tracking Transparency ATT framework, which is set to significantly disrupt the over $100 billion US mobile ad industry, notes Andrew Bluestein of Adweek. And already Apple is preparing the industry for more privacy-related changes. iOS 15, which will likely come out in September, but we're not sure for certain, will feature a bunch more privacy changes. We're going to try to go through them. A little bit confused with this one. I was, but I've got some experts here to help me out. So, where should we start, folks? Which one do you think was the most interesting to you? I mean,
App Privacy Report jumps out to me to be the most interesting and compelling of the new features.
Let's start there. So yeah, Apple's new App Privacy Report feature lets Apple device users see when individual apps request to access features like the microphone, camera, phone gallery, and which third-party apps they have connected with in the last 30 days, notes Zoe Kleiman and David Malloy of the BBC. This goes beyond Apple's existing nutrition labels, as the media people call them, which show which kinds of permissions apps ask for before they're installed. So Sarah, what jumps out to you about this? I was reading this and thinking, I thought that you do get asked about the microphone, the camera, things like that when you're starting to open up an app. What jumped out to you about this?
Yeah, so I think, the nutrition labels were an exciting first step, but they were almost entirely self-reported. And so there wasn't a way to actually validate, whether or not the apps were doing what they were saying they were doing. And so this is actually the next step to say, Apple is going to report on what the data access actually is, how often these apps are using your microphones, how often they're sharing data with third parties, et cetera. And so, I think it's a really material way for consumers to actually see what's going on and monitor, what apps are talking to each other and, actually be able to turn those features on or off from those interfaces as well. So it's an empowering tool, I think.
Do we think people are going to appreciate having this? Do we think that they're using nutrition labels much, if at all? And will they really open up this privacy report?
I mean, I think it's fair to say that not many consumers will, but it's important to have the option, right? And I think that's the real shift in the space, which is to say, like, not everyone's going to use it, but for those that want to, you can. And therefore, it gives some consumers more control and more power over their preferences.
Mm-hmm. So what else do we have here? We have also private relay is one of the other features, and hide my email. So private relay, Apple's version of VPN. So when you use Safari, your traffic is encrypted, so no one can intercept it, no one can see where you're going or where you're coming from, including Apple, your internet service provider website you're visiting. So Apple's private relay is something else Apple is bringing out with iOS 15, and also hide my email, which will let you generate a pretend email address for all the websites that now ask you to add an email address for you to read them, make you sign up to multiple accounts. Those emails then go into your real email inbox, but the website doesn't know your real email address. There are some limitations. Some of the articles were noting from Apple's demonstration, it only appears to work when you use Safari Mail and with your iCloud email address. So private relay, their VPN, and hide my email, two other features which are coming with iOS 15. Thoughts on these, folks?
I think it is interesting that when you look at sort of all of these new privacy options, a lot of them entail that you're using sort of the full suite of Apple products, that not only are you an iOS user, but you're also an Apple Mail user, you're also using Safari, and you also have an iCloud email address. So I think, granted, there are a lot of people who are using that full suite, but I don't think that the implications for these types of options are maybe going to be as widespread as something like IDFA, where they're showing that a lot of users automatically opted into that. I think the real question that's going to be interesting is, are consumers going to be more open to using the Apple suite in order to have access to all of these options, which seems like kind of a tall order if you're used to using maybe an iPhone, but you're using Gmail. And are the privacy options going to be enticing to bring people over into using this full suite just to have access to these options? I think that's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, will they come over to using all of the Apple's full suite of services here? But also, are they willing to pay for them? Because we were saying that these are the two services that Apple's asking you to pay for?
Yeah, they are some of the offerings that are part of the Cloud Plus or iCloud Plus offering. And so, yes, consumers will have to pay for some of these features. I think what we are seeing here is that, this is further indication that Apple thinks that privacy is a competitive advantage, and consumers are willing to pay more for those features, or at least some consumers are. And, my most recent report actually bears this out. It's about privacy as a competitive advantage, and how Apple is, acknowledging that, there is a willingness to pay. And, surveys have suggested that, 7 out of 10 consumers are actually willing to pay more and expect to pay more for privacy. And so, I think there is a market demand emerging, and Apple is, starting to take advantage of that potential.
Sarah, did we cover that report on the podcast?
We did a couple weeks ago.
We did. Okay, I'm just checking. Okay, good. Yeah, so check that episode out. I was just making sure, because if we haven't, we should, and I thought we did. So privacy is a competitive advantage, right?
Yep.
Came out very recently? Yep. All right, if you're a Pro subscriber, definitely check that out.
A couple weeks just before the WWDC, and I'm sitting there watching, and they're spending 20 minutes on privacy, and the lights dim, and they're making a big show of it. And I think that's just further indication of what I was saying in the report, which was Apple is trying to both make privacy a part of its marketing message to consumers, but also, is arguably shifting the entire industry by changing standards, by, doing things like, affecting the ability for pixels to be tracked in email, et cetera. So there's putting a stake in the sand to change how things work, and that's going to have huge ramifications for the rest of the industry.
So Thomas Husson, analyst at Forrester, he was saying, quote, "In this area, no doubt Apple is leading the pack and setting the tone for the rest of the industry," close quote. Is that true?
I think it has been true. I mean, thinking about even how Apple was one of the first to deprecate third-party cookies in Safari, and that was followed by Mozilla doing it in Firefox. And then, of course, Google planning to do it this year. They are sort of a leader in the space, and other tech companies have followed suit sort of in the same way that Sarah's report describes.
So, and then Apple's Mail app will have mail privacy protection, which is different from Hide My Email.
Right.
What's going on? So they're trying to push privacy. They're going to have to convey a certain message to consumers. I guess they're not going to have to go into the weeds about all of this stuff like folks in the industry will have to understand what's going on. For very obvious reasons, consumers will just care about privacy, about that word. Do they feel like their devices, their services that they're using, are they more private? They also noted another update in the privacy realm. Siri is going to get more private. Their virtual assistant, Apple's voice assistant, will now do all the speech recognition processing on your device. It won't send the audio to an Apple server for processing, so Apple won't be able to access those recordings.
This one's a super interesting one to me because I think this is a really cool example of how, a privacy feature can actually improve the overall service. It means that, Siri's response time is going to be faster because it's not going to the cloud to process the voice data. It's also an indication of just how far the kind of AI, voice recognition software has come, both on the devices for the chips to be advanced enough to do it on the device itself. And that's a huge indication of technological progress. And then, of course, it's also meaning that you can use Siri offline, which has been always a problem. It's a huge pain if you're like driving in some spot that doesn't have good service and you try to get Spotify to start playing something while you're driving and Siri can't even recognize it. So I think this is a huge win, not just for protecting the voice recordings on the device, but also for the service improvement.
Yeah. So lots of updates here. The new app privacy report feature, mail privacy protection, private relay, Hide My Email. Siri's getting more private as well by hosting things locally or processing speech locally. How much will consumers care? And another way of asking is what do consumers want when it comes to privacy? If each of you could pick one thing, what would that one thing be where you could have the ear of the CEOs of the tech companies and say, hey, stop messing about with all the other stuff. Give me this. For Sarah, for you, it seems like they might be solved with the Siri thing.
Yeah, I mean, that one jumps out at to me because it's both, I think there's a growing sense of creepiness of audio listening devices. And this actually kind of solves one of those biggest barriers to entry or hurdles for consumers, which is, if I'm going to let a device listen all the time to have this feature, I want my voice recordings not to be going to the cloud. And I think that's a huge win and maybe sets a precedent for other voice assistants as well.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a particular feature that jumps out at me in terms of what the consumer can, whether consumers can even articulate what they specifically want, I think is tough. So in some ways, each of these features is trying to meet a consumer need that, maybe consumers aren't aware that they have.
Right.
But I do think that, there's lots and lots of data that suggests that consumers are increasingly concerned about their data privacy, what's being done with their data, and whether they have control over it. So I think the control aspect of this and maybe the awareness aspect of it, which are sort of connected, is really the thing that's driving all of this change and that consumers would probably say that they want the most.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think there's there's a certain amount of education that Apple is doing with all of these features, both in explaining how the industry has been working by revealing the fact that pixels exist in email. I don't think many consumers actually understand that. But when they find out about that, that feels like tracking and that feels not great. And I think the broad sweeping, impression that consumers have is like, surveillance capitalism is kind of gross. And once you find out the extent to which, tracking exists, consumers are not excited about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, Apple didn't say when iOS 15 will roll out. You could assume September. That's the general kind of cadence for their updates. But you can definitely assume that all of these features will be present whenever it's released. So we've got time for the story of the week. It's time now for the game of the week. First, a quick word from our sponsor, Vtex. Retail's next competitive threat may come from a business model or channel that didn't even exist a few months ago. This modern dynamic requires companies to adapt quickly, pivoting business seemingly overnight, something traditional commerce platforms just can't support. There's a new enterprise commerce platform on the rise, one that's fast, flexible, and doesn't require 9 months and $1 million to get up and running. Go to vtex.com/emarketer to learn more. All right, folks, we are back. It's time now for the game of the week. Today's game, What's the Point? I nearly decided to play a different game. I didn't. I'm just kidding. It would take too much effort. We're playing What's the Point? It's the only game we play, the part of the show where we read out 4 stories and have contestants Audrey, Sarah, and Blake tell us what they think is the main takeaway of the story. Okay answers get 1 point, good answers get 2, and Yahtzee answers get 50 points.
Whoa.
Because that's how Yahtzee's played. I know.
50.
Always surprises me when that's... I know.
How are you going to come back from that?
Yes, it's game over at that point, yeah. It's pretty much a knockout punch. Each person gets 20 seconds before they hear that thing I just did, the bell. Whoever has the most points after 4 rounds wins and gets the last word. It's funny, I always play Yahtzee, forget that you can get Yahtzee, and I feel like I'm on a good score, and then, or I'm crushing someone, and then they get Yahtzee, and I'm like immediately infuriated. What a stupid game.
What is Yahtzee?
I've never played it.
Me neither.
That's the word
Yahtzee.
game, right? The little dice with
It's where you shake the dice in a canister, and I don't know anything else.
and they fall into the grid. Is that right?
No, that's Boggle.
Oh, that's Boggle.
Boggle's a great game. Yahtzee, I've never played it.
I was going to say, you playing Yahtzee with Scrabble pieces. What are you doing?
What? It's not a dice?
It is a dice, yeah. Victoria, please tell me you've heard of Yahtzee. Bring us back. Oh my god.
I'm having trouble picturing what it looks like.
Get it together. Disney Yahtzee. That's all I play. That's what I played growing up. And instead of dice with numbers, you had dice with the characters on it. Nothing? Oh, good. All right. Moving on. I'm glad I used that reference. But no, 0 people got.
Bunch of millennials in here.
What game are we playing?
Yeah. Oh. If you get Uno, well, that would be 1 point. What else? What other game can you get something and you just win it all? I used Royal Flush last week. I don't think anyone got that either. Let's just say if you have a really good answer, it's 3 points. All right, moving on. Story 1, we start with Blake, top left corner of my screen. Spotify launches Clubhouse competitor. Spotify's live audio app, Greenroom, separate to the Spotify app, just launched on June 16th, letting users host live conversations about music, sports, and culture. Ashley Carmen explains that the Greenroom app is built on recently bought Locker Room. It's built on top of that code. The new app will feature native recordings so users can save their shows and share them as podcasts. There's also a creator fund where folks can get paid based on the popularity and level of engagement in their rooms. Blake, Spotify launching a Clubhouse competitor called Greenroom. What's the point?
I actually think if there's one Clubhouse clone that's going to be really successful, it would be coming out of Spotify, just because there's already this sort of live podcast culture, and a lot of that are usually broadcast on YouTube, I think, traditionally. And as Spotify keeps buying up all of these podcast properties to get original content and exclusive content, it makes sense that there's going to be a platform for these popular podcast hosts who are maybe not eligible to stream on YouTube anymore because they have an exclusive contract with Spotify. So it's a live platform for these hosts now.
Sarah.
Yeah, I think the fact that native recording is part of this is, a natural workflow for, direct to podcast. And so that seems like a natural fit. I'm still kind of bearish at this point about social audio in general. And I think I asked everyone, when's the last time you were on Clubhouse? When have you tuned in? And I think, that is dropping off pretty quickly.
Direct to D2P. Direct to podcast. Very good. Audrey.
My first impression of this is that it's Spotify really attempting to not only launch social audio, but to just, ramp up its efforts to create a creator economy of its own, and then use that as an original content creation engine that, easily enables them to supply the platform with lots of original content from creators.
Audrey came to play. Oh, nearly Yahtzee already. That was quick. It wasn't quite. There's still all to play for. Or is there? Story 2, we start with Sarah. New social network IRL takes on Facebook groups. 2-year startup, social network, IRL, or in real life, for anyone like me who didn't really know what that meant, wants to help folks do more together by meeting up in person. IRL CEO and co-founder Abraham Shafi recently told The Verge, quote, "We're building Facebook groups and events for the generation that doesn't use Facebook," close quote. Alex Heath of The Verge notes that IRL is setting up a creator fund that will pay people to organize events in major cities using its app, like an outdoor movie night or a block party. The new company, backed by Japanese tech giant SoftBank, has 12 million users for IRL and is valued at $1 billion. We start with Sarah. As I mentioned, Sarah, new social network, IRL taking on Facebook groups. What's the point?
Everything about this to me screams that Steve Buscemi reaction gif from the 30 Rock episode. How do you do, fellow kids? This, I don't know, the IRL thing.
Wait, everyone got that reference, but not Yahtzee? Are you kidding me?
Memes. Come on. I wish this were a visual medium and we could just pop up the meme on the screen.
I'm such an old man. I'm like, Bridge? Remember Bridge?
But seriously, I think this is a weird millennial distinction. IRL is, the distinction that there's a difference between online and offline worlds is very much, for people who grew up in a time there was an offline. And I think that distinction doesn't exist for later generations. So it feels really weird to be calling this thing something that isn't meaningful to Gen Zers.
Yep. Audrey.
I think that's so interesting, but I have a similar take. The fact that there's only about 12 million or so users, and most of those, or all of those at the moment, are teenagers living in Middle America, to me doesn't suggest that this is something that's going to have global ramifications. But it's, it's hard to say. I think with any sort of fledgling social app that's trying to do all these different things, you hear all these, even Facebook, trying to create its own sort of super app or WeChat replica. I think all of those aspirations can be sometimes a bit hollow.
Blake?
Yeah, there's literally nothing original about this platform other than the fact that it's being geared toward kids. I think the founder even said it's like Facebook for Gen Z, and just because Gen Z is not on Facebook, it doesn't mean that they're going to be on this thing either. So I think that I don't think Gen Z, just based on what I see, they don't seem to have too much trouble figuring out ways to assemble. I think that they've got that covered through other communications platforms. So I don't know.
Gen Z, assemble! Story. They slowly wade over, just staring down at their phones, not paying any attention, bumping into people.
I don't see them roaming the streets, just looking for people to hang out.
They just use Pokemon Go.
Probably. Oh. Our third story. We start with Audrey, a new data privacy agency. Question mark? The FTC currently enforces federal privacy laws, but Senator Kirsten Gillibrand wants to create a new agency to deal with data privacy, notes Sarah Morrison of Recode. This idea comes from a revamped version of her Data Protection Act bill and would scrutinize data collection and use practices, review any data transferals because of a merger, as well as some other things. Some see the FTC's $5 billion fine on Facebook a few years ago as merely a slap on the wrist, seeing as that quarter, the quarter that it was handed to them, they made 3 times as much in revenue. The new privacy agency would have an Office of Civil Rights to make sure data is not used or collected in a discriminatory way. Audrey, a new data privacy agency? What's the point?
I think this is a decent idea. It's hard to say who's going to rally behind it and whether it actually has legs, but I do think that if you've ever seen one of the tech hearings over the past several years, it would be clear that lawmakers have historically fallen short of appropriate enforcement. And so if there's an agency that has its defined purpose as doing that and, really trying to do it effectively, then I think that that's worth creating a new regulatory body for.
Blake,
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, if you just go back to the antitrust hearings and just how misinformed a lot of Congress seems to be when it comes to this stuff, and you hear that the FTC is overwhelmed by these sort of new types of regulatory necessities in the digital world, it just makes sense to have a team of hopefully slightly more informed individuals who are capable of figuring out ways to create action that actually means something and will make a difference.
Sarah.
Yeah, I agree that we need enforcement in some form, whether that's a new agency or giving the FTC further resources to actually do the job. Either way, I think this is also obviously going to go hand in hand with the legislative reform in the form of a federal privacy standard. So, an enforcement agency is nothing without the legal basis behind it.
Yeah, that last point. So Washington Representative Susan Delbenis, her March privacy bill would alternatively just give the FTC lots more money, lots more people to work for them. The FTC currently only has 40 people dedicated to privacy matters. 40 people in the whole country dedicated to privacy from a team of over 1,000. Yeah, lots of people. Of a team 1,000. Quick math, that's 4% of FTC staff focus on privacy. All right, final story. We're moving to the final round. One of you is winning by a lot. Which one will it be?
Where's the leaderboard, man?
Don't worry about that.
Transparency.
Don't worry about it. It's private. Speaking about privacy,
It'll
that's
be
private.
way too transparent for this game.
We start with Blake. How much are Americans getting out is our final story. Americans are getting out more, but cautiously, writes Lydia Seid of Gallup. That's who she writes for. In a write-up of a recent survey, she observes a few things. Number one, 22% of Americans now practice social distancing with folks outside of their household. Just 22%. That's down from nearly 50% in January. Similar percentages as well for small gatherings with family, 22% to 50%. 44%, this is the second point, 44% are still avoiding events with large crowds. That's down from 72% at the start of the year. Number three, when it comes to having visited a store in the past 24 hours, 60% of people had visited a grocery store, 35 a different type of store, and 24 a pharmacy. 60 grocery, 35 different type, 24 pharmacy. Each of those were up 10 points from the start of the year. And finally, 26% of Americans had dined in a restaurant, up from 11% who had in January. Again, this is within the last 24 hours. Shopping, you do often. Restaurants, maybe not so much. So keep that in mind. Blake, how much are Americans getting out? Question mark. What's the point?
Yeah, I think the point is we've sort of reached this point where there are vaccinated people who are previously more concerned about going out in public and not social distancing, that have been vaccinated and now feel comfortable. And that's added on top of the folks who were not concerned in the first place and have not been vaccinated. So it's sort of just a larger group, but not necessarily a similar consensus among them, which is, I guess, okay if the rate of infection keep going down, but could become very troubling if things begin to sort of flatline and it's hard to separate the two different thought processes between people who are comfortable going out.
Audrey.
Yeah, I mean, most of this data would suggest that that's true. Comfort levels are improving. Signs of life are returning in almost every area of commerce, travel, etc. There was, an inflection point that happened last month. Less than half of people are now avoiding big crowds, events with big crowds. More people are going to be in-store shopping. Family togetherness is returning. So all of those things are good things, but similar to what Blake said, there appears to be a divide where among the people who said that they don't plan to get vaccinated, they are also the group that's most likely not to be wearing their masks outside.
Sarah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just looking at what I did, I made my dentist appointment, made my optometrist appointment, ran some errands that had been waiting until I was vaccinated. And so I think those are the types of, everyday activities that we just put off for so long. And I think, we're in this weird, awkward transition phase of, what are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable with? What feels like what feels right. I think when I went into Warby Parker to pick out my new glasses, I was like trying on glasses and I was like, is this allowed? Am I allowed to put this on my face? And that's just a weird feeling. And I think we're going to have to live in that awkwardness for a while.
Yeah, we've got essential and non-essential businesses. There are also essential and non-essential activities. And it seems like people are rushing to do those essential ones quicker than those other ones, which makes a lot of sense. The thing that jumped out to me, mask wearing hasn't budged. Share of Americans wearing a mask in the past week, did you wear a mask? The share of people who said yes, 80%. 80%, it was the 80%, 80 mark last June 2020. It has stayed there. Last month was the first time in 11 months it ticked below the 80% mark, from 80 to 79 in a year's time. Also, 80 to 90% of folks who were fully or partially vaccinated still wearing a mask as well. So that speaks to Americans getting out more, but definitely cautiously. All right, that's we've got time for the game of the week. This week's winner, a drum roll. Audrey is this week's winner of the game of the week. Congratulations!
Yahtzee.
She won at the very beginning. Yahtzee. It was like a nearly Yahtzee. It was kind of like buying when you buy. Is it Boardwalk at the beginning of the Monopoly game? Is that the best? Is that the best one? Is the best?
It's the marquee property. Yeah,
and then
marquee
you
property
demolish
for
everybody
Americans.
else by default.
And then you wreck going forwards. Yeah, it was like you bought that, so everyone knew you were going to win, but you hadn't technically won. I don't know. There was no reason to play the rest of the game, but we did anyway. Mayfair for English people who are like, what the hell's Boardwalk? It's their Mayfair. It's the fancy purple one at the end. Audrey, you won. Congratulations.
not really, but whatever. Just go ahead.
What do you mean not really? What are you doing?
It's Boardwalk is not Mayfair.
Mayfair on the English Monopoly board.
There's an English
There's a
one?
different board.
There's like 1,000 different flavors of what is happening.
Really?
Do Americans not play board games? What's going on here?
Can you send
There's
me
like
one?
there's like Simpsons version. There's like different universities in America have like their own flavor of different. You get like
Right,
Monopoly
I know
board.
I know that there are different kinds, but I'm
Oregon
wondering like
State.
if you're in England and you go to the store and you buy Monopoly, are like the properties different, or does it specifically say like this is like the London version of Monopoly?
The
it just
little
says
car
Monopoly.
has a boot.
It's gotta be an English. The guy's name's Uncle Money Pennybags.
Yeah,
What's
that's
his name.
That's our.
That's the most English. It's definitely. It just says Monopoly. That's what it says. I don't know if it says English version, American version.
I mean, it's Monopoly. It's inherently
Google that.
monopolies are inherently American.
But the streets are different.
That's true. Yeah, the street. Yeah. You have all the streets are named
The
like
properties
Marlborough
are
Street and Oxford Street and Mayfair, things like that. Yeah, Old Kent Road. We won't go through all of them. Piccadilly is one. Yes, well played. Fenchurch Station. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. You won the game of the week, Audrey. What would you like to tell people with the final word? You get the final word of the game of the week. 30 seconds to tell us anything you want in the world.
Okay. Well, Bo Burnham, his Netflix special Inside is fantastic. And I have
shout.
actually listened to the soundtrack on Spotify several times.
Oh. How many times did you say? Oh, several.
Several.
Cool. Thank you so much for that recommendation. Congratulations to Audrey. She wins this week's Game of the Week. We move now to Questions Answered. That's the part of the show where we answer the emails that you've emailed into us. The last 2 weeks, we didn't have any. Or so I thought. I thought maybe everyone's just given up on us. They said enough with the questions. It's not true. So I thought we weren't getting anything. I wasn't getting the emails is what happened. So I didn't get any emails that were sent in the past couple of weeks. So I apologize for putting you through those jokes that I told instead of answering questions because we didn't have any.
Do you have iOS 15 already and they're hiding your email?
Oh, maybe. Maybe
No.
it's happening.
Marcus is just a good old-fashioned liar, and he's saying he's not getting
I'm not a
these
liar.
emails
What are you
because he
doing?
wants to try out his jokes on everyone. This is his only platform.
That was really bad.
There's
I
only
listened to
so
that.
much truth to that.
Yeah, it was
rough.
that was rough, right? Yeah.
It was. What do you mean? Nicole was in stitches. She loved it. She was being polite. All right, fine. So I get some nice emails from people saying, "Keep up the jokes, Marcus." I've got none of those emails. If anyone wants to send one of those in, I'd really appreciate it because I've been telling jokes for a while now. It's not easy. They're not easy to write. I'm not writing them. It's not easy to find either. Anyway, this is where we answer the questions that I've been ignoring for the last couple of weeks. I'm very sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry for the jokes. They're brilliant. So anyway, Kyle from LA, he says, his title of his email. I started reading it, and the title said, "Please stop." And I thought, oh, telling jokes. Here we go. No. Please stop saying Alexa. I won't say it out loud because he wants us to stop saying it. Yeah, he says, I love the podcast and listen to it every day. Thanks, Carl. And today there are several mentions of Alexa. It's Alexi with an A at the end. And it caused all the devices in my home to start going and adding random things to my cart.
Oh my gosh.
So, sorry, Carl. We were wondering whether that was the case. We did an episode where we were saying it a lot, and it did trigger the people on the show's device. But then we didn't know if that was still doing that. So I kind of just gave up on not saying it, and we've been saying it a lot. We also, at the beginning of the show, said SIRI a ton. So if we've been activating devices the whole way through, then I apologize for that as well. We will try our best not to say it, but thanks for listening.
At least somebody's listening to it. It's just the automated devices.
Maybe you can write back and tell him not to listen on his Alexa.
Exactly. Yeah, there we go. See, we're already doing it for you, Carl.
There are privacy settings.
We'll probably say it at some point.
You can press the button and turn it off.
Oh,
stop it from listening for the duration of the podcast.
Check that out. Thanks for writing in, mate. Thank you so much for listening to the show. There are a few others that I've got to get to as well. So if you've emailed in and you're thinking, hey, where's mine? I'll pick it up for the next week or the following week after that. But please send them in. podcast@emarketers.com is where you can get in touch with us. And now I know how to access my email. So I'll find them all. We now move to dinner party data. This is the part of the show where we tell you the most interesting thing that we've learned this week. And we start with Audrey. She won the game of the week. So Audrey, what have you learned recently?
Yes, I just finished a book that's called Bitcoin Billionaires. It's about the rise of Bitcoin and in particular the Winklevoss twins' entry into Bitcoin. And so my fact, well, the book itself is decent, but it's very much like a layman's like sort of glitzy, gritty introduction to Bitcoin. It's not very technical. But as a person who has no idea what crypto is or how it works, it was fine. So my fact is that the Winklevoss twins don't sound like Armie Hammer.
Oh.
Fun fact, they do try to steal your notes in class.
Oh, wait. Yes. Sarah do you go to school with one of them?
I did. Both of them.
That's crazy. Both of them.
And I was a freshman, and they tried to use my notes for an open book exam.
This is a crazy story.
And I was like, guys, it's an open book exam. Why would I give you literally all of the answers? And I was an overeager freshman, so I had really good notes.
Yep.
That's crazy. That is a crazy story. All right, very good. Very good, very good. The book's called what?
Bitcoin Billionaires.
Everyone's pushing something, man. Every episode, someone's got a product. Audrey, don't worry about it. Everyone's last week something. What was it? Cheese? Someone? Boba tea was Debbie. Who was last week? Someone was trying to peddle.
Am I going to get in trouble with the FCC if I tell people to buy the crypto coin that I'm currently investing in?
Yes, you will.
Is that considered inflating the market?
A little bit.
No, as long as you just tweet about it, you know.
My hairdresser just told me she's mining something called pi, and I was like, oh, okay.
My dermatologist told me to buy a particular crypto coin like February, and that was how I knew that the bubble was about to burst. But
you guys getting recommendations for life. Blake, what you got for us, mate? What have you learned recently, apart from crypto tips from your hairdresser?
I learned that America's favorite month is October, and their least favorite month is January. So this is according to a YouGov of America poll that asked people what their favorite and least favorite month was. And 15% of U.S. respondents said October, which was followed by December, tied with December and May, both 12%. And then a flurry of other ones at 11%, June and July, the summer months, but overwhelmingly disliked months. 26% said that January is their least favorite month, followed by February. 21%. But I guess like there wasn't like an overwhelmingly like positive answer for favorite because October basically just inched out a couple of other months. But I found it was interesting that October is the favorite month. I guess people like fall.
Does that
Is it
surprise?
just a bunch of like pumpkin spice latte basic people?
I would
You
assume
got some
so.
good you got some good holidays, America. I'm surprised you picked the one with Halloween. I would have thought November because it's still in some places still warmish.
No,
Can
September.
be.
September is warmish. October is
Yeah.
sometimes warmish. Usually by the time you get to the end of October, though, it's rainy and gross, and November is pretty much all clouds.
Oh, okay. But I would have thought because of Thanksgiving, everyone would have been like, yeah, I'll take some November. I'll take some 4-day weekend
I mean, this is then in the Northeast
with some people.
United States,
true.
so it's not ubiquitous weather conditions for around the world in November.
That's true.
What do you think? What do you think the most favorite month in the UK would be? Since it's just perpetually just cloudy and like
None of
60
them.
degrees.
The 3 days that it's summer.
Yeah.
There was no days that it's summer. It's literally, was it June? What were you? June 25th? Yesterday I went outside. I was going to the bakery. So I just got back to the UK. I was going down to the bakery in I live in this small town. So I was walking down to the bakery. I left the house. My dad said, "You're dressed for winter. The hell's wrong with you?" I'm dressed for a British summer. Thank you very much. It's freezing outside. Rain, not a lick of sunshine out there. I had on about 12 layers. It's dismal.
I'm gonna start calling my autumn wardrobe British summer. When people ask like, "Oh, you're ready for fall?" I'll be like, "No, it's just British summer. It's a new,
oh, yeah.
very fashionable."
Oh, England, I love you, but you make it difficult. I don't know, actually. It would probably have to be July because they're basically like that's if it's gonna be a day or two of sunshine, that's when it might happen, but typically doesn't. Yeah, sunshine here is it's kind of like a leap year. Every 4 years we get something. Who's left? Sarah, what you got?
So Marcus, I brought this one for you because you seem to like weird
thanks.
deep sea oceans things.
What are you doing? Why do you have to throw weird in there? Just put fun and exciting. Weird, peculiar. Odd.
So
All right.
I have to give credit where credit is due. This comes via Rusty Foster's Today in Tabs newsletter. And it's via a tweet from a marine biologist, Andrew Thaler. And he says that there is a globe-spanning layer of mesopelagic fish that is so dense it distorts sonar. And for decades, we had no idea what created this deep scattering layer in the ocean, and we still almost know nothing about it. And it contains 65% of all fish biomass. So this is they're calling it dark fish, all the fish that we don't know anything about. And he says that this is the layer of fish that live between 100 and 1,000 meters below the surface. And some estimates put it at 95% of the fish biomass is actually in this mesopelagic zone. And we just know nothing about these fish.
Wait, there's a layer of fish. Is that what you're trying to explain to me? In the ocean, there's just a layer.
A
globe-spanning
spanning layer of mesopelagic fish.
I'm sure they're not wall-to-wall
No.
fish, but it's the mass
Where they hang
of
out.
fish. Yeah. Yeah.
And sorry,
out.
what's the name of this marine biologist?
Andrew
Sarah?
Thaler.
Oh, I thought his name was Andrew Sailor. That would have been funny
be great.
if it was a marine biologist named Andrew Sailor.
All right, that is a cool one.
Yeah.
That's a thinker.
They hang out in the central gyres of the ocean. Did you know
course
about
they
the
do.
central gyres?
Who did?
Of course.
No. Blake did not know. All right, very good. I've got 2 quick ones for you. Number 1, the company Nintendo, which you may know for being a video games company, is older than the NFL. It's older than the first US news radio broadcast. It's older than traffic signals. And it's older than the Jungle Gym. Founded in September 1889 by Fusajiro Yamuchi, the company began by selling hand-painted playing cards, which eventually became the most popular brand in Japan. Nintendo then sold ramen noodles, tried out a taxi service, and even dabbled in instant rice. Rice is pretty instant. All right, maybe it needs
It's
to be
an
more.
hour, man.
Rice?
No, 15 minutes. Most rice.
Yeah.
In a
on the
proper
stove.
rice
An
cooker,
hour?
it's an hour.
Oh, proper rice.
All right.
Oh, yeah. I make no food. I have no idea how long rice takes. I've never made rice. I said that. I was like, oh, God. Maybe it Rise takes a long time. It sounds like it would be fast. In 1970, during the arcade boom, they developed the beam gun, which was their springboard into gaming. In 75, they developed a console to play video games on a TV screen. The rest is a remarkable history. Best Nintendo game ever is Mario Kart. That was a rhetorical question, people.
It's debatable.
It has to be Mario Kart. Unbelievable.
Duck Hunt. Come on, Duck Hunt.
Oh,
I was going to say the last time I played a legitimate Mario video game was probably the original version.
Yeah.
Whatever that.
I'll take original Mario. I'll take maybe a little Zelda. Other than that, Duck Hunt. Yeah.
Ooh,
if you've
Super
got the
Smash
gun.
Brothers.
If you don't have the gun,
Best
what's
one.
the point? Super Smash Brothers. Moving on. I don't have time for that. That's a popular one. It's a very popular one. It surprises me. Last one I got for you guys. Red rain once fell in India. Red rain. July 25th, 2001. Red rain fell over the Kerala district of Western India, writes British newspaper The Guardian. The strange drops ended up turning local people's clothes pink. Yellow, green, and black rain also fell in other local districts, notes Indian paper The Hindu. It's believed the rainwater turned various colors because the wind had swept up similarly colored sand before it came down with the rain. Bloody terrifying.
I thought you were going to say something about purple rain.
Yeah, me too.
That would have been cooler. Yeah. Red rain. Is no one else concerned about that? You guys are like,
That sounds
yeah,
really
of course,
intense.
It's fine. Scary. I thought I was pretty concerned by it. Everyone's like, it's fine. It's just rain. Thank you so much to my guests. Thank you to Blake.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
See you later.
Thank you, Audrey.
Thanks.
Thank you to Victoria. She edits the show. Thank you to everyone listening. If you want us to answer any of your questions, just say hi. You can email us at podcast@emarketer.com. I will actually get them this time. We'll see you guys on Monday, hopefully, for the Behind the Numbers Daily, the Marketer podcast made possible by VTEX. Enjoy those weekends. Is it pronounced IRL or in real life? Do we know?
It's Earl.
IRL? Okay.
Definitely it's that.
Just say it just in case.
With confidence, rule out Blake's suggestion.
I think we should all just call it that.
Earl?
And then just make everyone else who's like, oh, I guess that's how it is.
New social network, Earl.